This is a pretty unusual video for me, but I want to talk about things that I've experienced in my life. And I decided to pick a spot out here in the woods, make a fire. It's about 30 degrees, there's snow on the ground, and it's a little chilly. Thankfully, the wind isn't blowing. But I thought this would be a cool setting for what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go back to as far back as I can remember. And although I may not understand all of it, it's 100% true. It's unscripted. It's unrehearsed. These are things that I've experienced that have brought me to this point in my life. I don't know how old I was, but I was pretty young. And I remember my mother telling me that she was born, and as I said, I don't understand all of this. I haven't researched it, so I'm not sure quite what it means. But my mother told me when I was pretty young that she was born with a film of skin over her face that supposedly led her to, for a lack of a better term, see the future. Know what's happening in the now kind of thing, so to speak. My father passed away on my 14th birthday, and we were pretty poor. We lived in a little town outside of a small town in northeast Pennsylvania. My sister had transportation, she was married, and she was better off to do than we were. And I guess it's informative to say that my sister is 16 years older than I am. So my father was a tail gunner in a B-17 in World War II. His plane was shot down over Germany, and if it were not for the camaraderie, I think that's the word, of one of his crewmates, my father would have died and I wouldn't be here making this video. But his plane was hit over Germany, and he was knocked unconscious. He had a severe blow to the head. His plane mate took him out of the plane and pulled his parachute. He was taken POW, and he was in Stalag 17B for well over a year until he was liberated by the U.S. Because of this blow to the head, it was so severe, and maybe it's worth noting that he was also shot in the stomach when the plane was taking fire. But he did survive, and oh God, I guess it was 30 years later, he started to develop vision problems and severe headaches. Long story short, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And the doctors could attribute this to the blow he took in the head when his plane went down over Germany. So, on my 14th birthday, my father passed away from cancer, basically. And as I said, we were very poor. We didn't have a telephone. My mother didn't drive. My little brother and I were too young to drive. We were 4 or 5 years before the legal driving age. But my sister, on the other hand, who was married and lived in 2 towns over, she stopped by the house one day, and she walked through the door, and she said, I was there, and I remember this very vividly. She said, "Hi, Mom, I have something to tell you." And my mother said, "I know, Dad died." And my sister said, "Yeah, how did you know?" And she said, "My mother told me." Now, her mother, which would have obviously been my grandmother, had passed away before I was born. So, for whatever reason, my mother truly believed that anytime something bad happened, her mother would tell her about it. I had an older brother who recently passed away as well. And he was, gosh, probably 18 years older than I am. He was around during the time of Vietnam. Excuse me. And he decided that joining the Marine Corps would be a good idea, which he did. And he was shipped to Vietnam after his training had finished. So I remember again one day in the early 70s that my mother was hysterical. And I asked her what was wrong. And I was pretty young at the time. I might have been 7 or 8. And she said, something bad happened to your brother. And I was like, how do you know that? And she said, my mother told me. Well, sure enough, my brother was shot in Vietnam through the chest. It exited through his, I'm pretty sure it was his left shoulder. And he lived, he survived, he was shipped back home. And I never gave it a second thought how Mom knew this kind of stuff. So that was obviously prior to my father's death. And that's just part of the story. Now, I've never had any paranormal connections with my father since he's been gone, other than one dream, which was extremely vivid and convincing, I guess you could say. But my mother has since passed, and this is probably going back 15 years ago. I came, and she had passed at this time from this point of the story on. I came home from work one night, and we lived in a house very close to Ocean City, New Jersey beach. When I got home, there was nobody there. My wife was out with the children, and I went upstairs to my bedroom. I got changed, cleaned up, and I hopped into bed, and I flipped on the TV. And the channel that was on had the program of, his name is John something, crossing over, the guy that claims he can talk to dead people. So I kind of was interested in just laying there chilling out watching this show. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, just because of what I've known about my mother, I said out loud, I said, Mom, if you know I'm here and you can hear me, let me know. And as true as I sit here making this video, right across the hall from my bedroom was my youngest son's bedroom. And his wind-up toy started to play. So I got up and I called for my wife and my kids, but no one answered. I thought they had come home. So I looked out the window of my bedroom to where we parked our cars, and the only car there was mine. So I walked out of the hall into my son's bedroom, and he had this little wind-up toy that was sitting on the floor, and it was playing. His light was on in his bedroom as well, which I know for a fact was not on when I walked past that room to get into my room. So what I'm telling you is what I've experienced, not what I've heard. And these stories are as true as can be as far as my life goes. So I said again out loud, I said, Mom, don't ever do that to me again. And to this day, I've never had any contact with my mother, which is kind of sad, I guess. So some years had passed, and I worked at a car dealership. I was a GM tech, And one night I was coming, and this is not relevant to either of my parents or any of my family members, actually. So one night I'm coming home from work, and there's a stretch of road that goes between a major highway, and you probably can't see because I know it's dark, but there's a major stretch of highway that's perpendicular to this small road. And on the opposite end of this small road is another major highway. And this small road is probably 6 miles in length total. And this is in New Jersey. So I come home from work one night. I make the right onto this small road. And in the very beginning, well, maybe the first quarter of this small road is the polite way to call it is a bad neighborhood. A lot of drugs, a lot of bad people, a lot of things you read about in the paper. So nothing new to me. I make my right, and I'm going down this middle road, heading out to the other highway, so I can go home for the night. Probably 3/4 of the way down that road, on the right-hand side, there was a dump. And they had these pools of greenish blue water that were loaded with chemicals to dissolve whatever they were dumping there. So I'm coming down this road, and in the distance, I can see somebody walking on the left side. As I get closer, I realize that it's a girl. She's in a bikini top. I don't know what she was wearing around her midsection waist area because she had a towel wrapped around her waist. Now, mind you, this is October. So, as I go by her, she's got blonde hair, and she's very pretty. And as I go by her, she waves with her hand, like, I hope you can see this, just rolling her fingers stretched out one after another, and she's looking dead in my eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, she's lost. She doesn't know where she's at. She's heading to a bad place. So I pull over as quickly as I could. I spin my truck around and I go back the other way, and I don't see her anymore. So I get out of my truck, and it's sort of wooded, but it's kind of clear. It's not dense woods, I guess you could say. And I'm yelling out, ma'am, hun, can you hear me? Are you there? I'm not a threat. You're going the wrong way. You don't want to go that way, and so on and so on. And after a few minutes, nobody ever answered. I never found her. So I thought, wow, she was really scared, and she ran off. So I got back into my truck, looked in my mirror a few times, never saw her, and I never saw her again. And just a week ago, my wife was in Jersey visiting friends, and her one friend brought this, I guess you would call it a murder, up. And my wife was like, oh my God, my husband, me, Sean, tells this story to some people sometimes, that he saw a girl walking down that just apparently vanished. And so this other person that is a friend of my wife confirmed that that was the area. It was definitely a girl. She was in her 20s, which she appeared to be at the time that I saw her. And that was probably one of the strangest things that I've ever seen, experienced. And again, I mean, I know people make up stories to get hits, to get subscribers, whatever. But I'm telling you true as I sit here, I'm not a liar. I don't make things up. You know, I don't really care what people think about me. But this is true. This happened. So I don't know how to explain this. Is it coincidental? Could it have been somebody, an actual human being that was so afraid of me that they just dove behind some brush and I never... Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. But it's very coincidental that the story applies to somebody being killed there. Moving on, one night I was in my little office and I was clicking on YouTube videos, just watching random videos, and I saw this one, Are Angels Real? So just for the heck of it, I clicked on this, and again, I'm Catholic, and say what you want, but I do believe. I clicked on this video about people who claim to have witnessed angels and angel interaction and so on and so forth. So I watched this video, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes long. And they said if you ask for your angel, and you truly believe, and I do, if you ask for your angel to make him or herself known, that they will. So after this video was over, I'm sitting at my desk, and I said aloud, I said, my angel, if you can hear me, please let me know. And immediately after I finished the last syllable in the word no, the light bulb above my head exploded. I mean, not like glass flying everywhere and sparks and stuff, but I could hear that it popped and the light went out. So that just kind of solidified my belief. I mean, yeah, anything's possible, random, coincidental, and so on. But I'm telling you again, truly, that this happened immediately after I said the word no. And as a believer, I just find that difficult to relate to coincidence. I guess that's the end of that as far as, you know, the paranormal kind of stories go. UFOs, two. I've seen two. I was in the United States Air Force. The last base that I was stationed at, I was working the main gate. I was an MP, and I was working perimeter control, so I was assigned to the main gate. And it was pretty slow this particular day. So I like to watch the F-16s. Those were the planes that were on our base, the F-16s. I like to watch them fly around and do their combat maneuvers and combat landings and all that stuff. So I'm watching a pair take off, and they pull vertical. And as they did, it was a fairly clear day, but there were patchy clouds here and there. There was this area of clouds that had a donut-shaped circle in the middle that you could still see the blue through. So as the F-16s flew through this, I saw a black dot, and that's the best way to describe it, a black dot, in this patch of blue sky. So, because of my duty station, I had binoculars. I grabbed my binoculars, I looked up, and through the binoculars, it also looked just like a black dot. We had at the time a SART team, security response team, and they patrol the area constantly. If you need them, you call on the radio, and they're there in a heartbeat, and, you know, they're your backup or your first line or whatever. So the SART team happened to come by, and one of the guys I was pretty good friends with, and I asked him, I said, hey, dude, take a look up there. And he said, what are we looking at? And I said, look through that patch of clouds. I said, you see that black dot? He goes, yeah, so? I said, that's been there for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Hasn't moved? I said, no, it hasn't moved. So he gets his binoculars, he looks, he says, yeah, he says, it looks like a black dot. I said, yeah, exactly. I said, it's not a helicopter, obviously it's not a plane. I said, it's been stationary for quite some time. So he kind of shrugged it off, and, you know, we talked for a few minutes, and off he went. And I kept an eye on this thing, and it was there minimally a half an hour. Now, the clouds blew by, the blue sky was back, and that black spot was still in the sky. So, again, my job was to check credentials, wave in officers, and enlist it, and so on, make sure, you know, who got on base was supposed to be on base. And a couple of times, waved some cars through, and I happened to glance up, and that dot was gone. No clue what it was. Never saw it come, never saw it leave. And the last part of this ensemble of stories is my younger brother and I, we were doing vinyl siding, decks, roofs, windows, and that kind of thing for some side money. And this was in South Jersey. Actually, it was in North Cape May. And in North Cape May, I think it was called, now this has been some time ago, Town Bank Road. And it ran right along the ocean. Or maybe it was the bay, the Delaware Bay. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. But if you got out of your car and there was a wall there and you looked down the wall, it was 15, 20, 30 feet down to where the water was. So my brother and I are working on a house and we're doing gutters. And he says, man, I'm getting thirsty. And I said, yeah, me too. And like idiots, we really thought it was going to be a short job. We didn't have anything to drink with us. So I said, I'll run down to, and if you're from Jersey or the surrounding area, you'll know the store Wawa, W-A-W-A. It's basically a convenience store chain, and they sell the best coffee ever, and they sell sandwiches and pretty much anything you want in a convenience store. So I said, I'm going to run down to Wawa, I'll get us something to drink. What do you want? Gatorade. Okay, I'm on my way. So I jump in my truck, and I'm driving downtown Bank Road, and the ocean is on my right side. So 3-4 miles from where we were working, all of a sudden, from obviously in the water area, something flew up off to the right of me, and it was a diamond shape, is all I can tell you. It flew fast, and it flew high, and it was gone before I even realized what was going on. But, and again, true story, witnessed it myself, no second hand, nothing. This is something that I saw personally. And it went up at such an angle that even if it was a jet, I've seen plenty of jets, and you know, depending on the cloud cover, they can burst through the clouds and you lose sight of them. But this was a nice, clear, blue, sunny day, and this thing was gone in a heartbeat. I mean, it was there, I noticed, gone. I don't do drugs. Yeah, I'll have a drink here and there, but I never drink when I'm working, when I'm driving, when there's real things going on. Usually weekends, parties, I'll have a drink of something, but I'm not an alcoholic by any means. So, I just wanted to share these stories because I know there's people out there that are struggling with what they think or what they thought they saw or what they hoped they saw. And I can tell you that, in my opinion, the afterlife is real. UFOs, and it's a weird subject to mesh those two together, but UFOs, and I don't have an explanation, and I'm not here to offer one. I'm just telling stories, as I said, that I personally experienced. But to anyone out there who's watching this who may have encountered similarities to what I'm saying, if nobody else, I get it. I believe. I understand. I've seen these things. And I don't have answers, but there is something definitely going on. Paranormal, UFO, a combination, a merge of the two. I don't know. But there's more to it than what we see in our everyday lives. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you soon, man. And have a great night.